Today you join me in sunny wine country here in Northern California, and I welcome you to the 2022 Kia EV6, and I welcome you to TFL EV. What we are taking a look at today is Kia's new electric vehicle that shares a platform with the Hyundai Ioniq 5. They're both on the eGMP architecture, but I would call the EV6 the Ioniq 5's sportier cousin. Now let's jump straight into specs on this car. For $40,900, you can get the EV6 in its base model, which is called the Lite. And the Lite gets you a 58 kilowatt hour battery, as well as 167 horsepower and 232 miles of range. There's a lot of numbers here, so you'll have to bear with me. The next step up is still a rear-wheel drive model, still a single electric motor, but you get a larger 77.4 kilowatt hour battery. That model is called the Wind, and it starts at $47,000. And with the bigger battery, you also get 225 horsepower and 310 miles of range. Now there are other trims than the Wind and the Lite. There is also the GT line, as well as an upcoming GT. Now the GT line, like what you see here, starts with the same battery and power output and range, 225 horsepower, 310 miles of range. However, both the Wind and the GT can be optioned with all-wheel drive. And if you get the all-wheel drive version of this car, you then get 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque. So that's 0 to 60 in 4.0 seconds according to Kia. This, what you're looking at, is the rear-wheel drive model. Now the least expensive version of the all-wheel drive EV6 that you can get is the Wind all-wheel drive at $50,900, so $10,000 more than the base. And if you get a fully spec'd out all-wheel drive GT line, that is going to come in at $55,900. So pretty big spread. I also mentioned that there is an upcoming GT version of this car. That's going to have 576 horsepower. So if you want a really quick electric car, be sure to keep a lookout for that model. Now, let's talk a little bit about charging on the EV6. This has an 800 volt charging system, and at a 350 kilowatt fast charger, you can return from 10 to 80% charge on this battery, which is equivalent to about 217 miles in under 18 minutes, according to Kia, and that's pretty fast. If you hook the car up to a regular level 2 charger from a 240 outlet, the kind of thing you would have at home, it will charge from 10 to 100% battery in about 7 hours. So you can have the car charge overnight. There's no issue there. Now, let's show you some of the cool features on this car, and that starts with this standard smart key. Of course, I can hold down, the car is locked, and start up the car so that it can warm the climate and get everything nice and comfortable for me on a cold winter day. And as you do that, you can see these grille shutters move around a little bit. This is pretty cool. So there is a cooling system for this battery. It's liquid cooled. The battery also has a heating system for inclement weather. Now, I also have these remote park buttons on the key. So if I hold down on the forward button, it will slowly, reluctantly, but eventually start to roll forward. And as soon as I let off, it stops. Now it's the same thing with the rear button, except it makes a little chime, lets you know car is reversing. And as soon as I let off, there we go, stops. And then of course I can hold down on the start again, car shuts right back off, and there we go. Now if I hit unlock on this key, you can see the door handles and the mirror pop out. And there's some pretty funky design going on here. Starting with the mirror, you can see they've done some interesting aerodynamic work because of course this car is electric, it doesn't have an engine running all the time. So you need to make sure wind passes around it quietly and smoothly, not just to preserve your range, but also to make the car comfortable. And a few more styling elements. This car does still have a little bit of Kia's Tiger Nose grille, so it keeps with their design strategy just a little bit. And a pretty cool headlight and taillight design. You have these split light sections, and it's the same on the rear, except that the taillight, as a lot of cars are starting to do, spans the whole width of the car, and it also draws a line down the body that meets up with this blade on the side of the car for a pretty unique style. I also really appreciate this split wing on the back. That gives it just a little bit more sporty flavor. Now let's jump inside of the car. And it just locked on me, but there we go. Door handles pop out. We jump inside and we see dual 12.3-inch curved screens. This is nice technology right here, which you would expect from an electric car. It's all about tech, so no surprise that you get big screens. If I hit the power button, it fires everything up. There we go. And there's tons of safety features on this car, none that appeal to me more than the blind spot view. So if I put the car into drive with this rotary dial and hit my turn signal, you can see a live view of my blind spot, which is really useful. This is one of the most useful features in the car industry for daily driving. Kia's been doing this for a while, and it is absolutely awesome. You also get a button here where you can pull up some different camera views. So you can see we've got a top-down view, we've got a view out the back, but you can also, boom, have a view as if you were standing outside of the car. Shows the car as being white, which is a little weird because this one, like you saw, is red, but still a really useful camera view. It distorts the image of what's around you just a little bit, but it is a very helpful thing to have. Now, something I want to figure out about this car is if you route somewhere, will it help you figure out where you're going to stop for charge? So right now, I have our hometown of Boulder, Colorado, plugged into the navigation. You can see 1,248 miles away. Obviously, we don't have enough range for that. And if I scan across our path that it's drawn, you can see it doesn't show you any points to charge at. Now, what you can do is you can put in your route. So I'll go back to the main screen here, Boulder, Colorado. And once it actually routes, it will show you an option to pull up different charge stations that are along your route. So see here, you can see here, it says insufficient charge to reach destination, obviously. So you search stations, and once it loads some of the many charge stations, it will show you, here are some options that are along your route, but it won't tell you where and when to stop to maximize your time spent like some other EVs do. So that's not quite the best navigation system in the industry. A few other tech items here. One thing I love is that you have dedicated switches for your heated seats, your heated steering wheel, and your ventilated seats. And heated seats are standard on all models of this car. Ventilated seats are standard on all but the base model. An 8-way power passenger seat is standard on all but the base model. And this Meridian premium audio system is also standard on all but the base model of the car. So there's a lot of good tech that you get here. And one thing that people will likely be happy to see is that there is a dedicated volume knob and tune knob, at least when you're in this version of the screen. This also controls your climate systems, and these are of course not physical buttons. This is just haptic feedback, so it can be just a little bit clunky to use, but you do get dedicated actual knobs for some of those things that you use quite often. And I like that on the steering wheel, you get a little rocker switch here for volume. You can also see some of your safety functions like auto steering are on here. You get tons of safety tech with the EV6, comes as no surprise. Automatic emergency braking, you also get active driving assistance, and tons of camera views like I showed you. Lots of really nice things to have. You also have wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on this screen, and the interior uses a bunch of recycled materials and vegan fabrics to make sure that you're being kind to the environment. And the GT offers you the ability to get some of these suede inserts on the seat for a little bit of a sportier feel. The GT line also gets you the option of having heated rear seats. But let me shut the car off real quick so it doesn't yell at me every time I open and close a door. Sometimes it can be hard to remember that your car is still running because obviously it doesn't make any noise. Now, jumping in the back seat, check this out. You do get vents as a rear seat passenger, so on a hot day, you're not going to be sweating and dying back here. You also have a USB-C port on the back of each one of these seats, and these seats, they've made them particularly thin to maximize the amount of space that you have in the back. The front seat is where I would put it, and I have plenty of leg room. I also have plenty of headroom here, even though this kind of has a more sloped roof design. And something that's really cool is that the back seats recline. So this is like straight up and down church pew style, but you can go pretty far back. So on a road trip, if you want to recline, you can get nice and comfy. And let's check out the trunk space. So we'll switch for it right down there. Obviously a power lift gate. And because this car has this more sloped roof design and rear end design, even though it's a hatch, you don't get tons and tons of space in the back, but it is 24.4 cubic feet. And then if you fold down the rear row, it doesn't fold quite flat, but that gets you 50.2 cubic feet of space. There is also no spare tire in this car. You have a tire inflation kit, but if you get stuck out on the road, you're not going to have another wheel that you can put on. Something cool that this car does do is that the charge port can be used to power other devices. So if you're setting up a campsite, you could power your campsite, power lights, things like that off of it. You could also technically even use this car as a power station to put some charge into your friend's electric vehicle, basically give them a jump in order to get them moving again. It will charge slow. It'll charge at the same rate as a 120 outlet, but that is something that this car lets you do in theory. And under the hood, you have also a small front cubby under what on a gasoline powered car would be an engine cover. That's kind of what this looks like. You can open up and see a very, very small compartment. So yeah, this is the frubby, the front cubby. You can use this for your charge cable, really not a ton else. This is one of the smaller front storage areas I've seen in an electric car. You've also got some more things going on back here. You've got fluids, you've got what looks to be a fuse box, 12-volt battery. So not really a ton of room for storage up here, but if you want to tuck your cable away somewhere where you don't have to look at it or hear it flopping around, that is one spot where you can put it. So all in all, a pretty cool car from Kia. This is going to be available in dealerships starting in the first quarter of 2022, so very soon. And Kia claims it will be competing against vehicles like the Tesla Model Y and the Mustang Mach-E. So if you're in the market for a vehicle like that, be sure to keep this one in mind. If you're in the market for something even sportier, keep an eye out for the GT model coming with 576 horsepower. Anyways, that's all for us today on TFL EV. Let us know what you think down in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.